In coal, we've substantially reduced our dependency. In fact, Israel is a global leader in cutting coal consumption. By 2025, that's 4 years from now, barring unforeseen circumstances, Israel will no longer be burning coal, period. In solar energy, over the last 5 years, we've increased our generation from 2% to almost 10% this year. And we're committed that by the end of this decade, renewable energy will be providing over a third of Israel's electricity. We've shown the world how to use water more efficiently in agriculture through pioneering developments in drip irrigation, hydroponic agriculture, and the use of artificial intelligence. Israel is a world leader in water purification and recycling, as well as in desalination. About 93% of Israel's wastewater is purified, and 86% is recycled for use in agriculture. These are very big numbers. And cooperation in the fields of water and renewable energy are also an integral part of our new cooperation with the UAE and Bahrain. So not only are we working to end dependency on fossil fuels and finding solutions to the climate crisis, but we're helping to cement Arab-Israeli peace. And that bodes well for the entire region, for the entire world.